Hello, all you history and architecture freaks out there, and welcome back to Historically Hot. Today, us pretty people are looking at how extravagant homes in the Gilded Age were used to conceal complications. These little tactics worked, and we still see them to this day. American society is obviously no stranger to crazy displays of wealth. From overpriced cars and Birkin bags or 90-pound diamond necklaces, people are reminded of the magnitude of wealth that others can achieve. As social media becomes our main form of communicating with each other, it's easier than ever to see what some people have and what you don't. On apps like Instagram or TikTok, people are posting about their trips, their experiences, their possessions, but we feel insecure since we naturally compare ourselves to those who post it. But, spoiler alert, we're not the only ones that have felt this way. For decades, everyday citizens have been paralyzed by the displays of wealth by the upper class. These financial and lifestyle differences are especially evident during the Gilded Age in America. A few citizens obviously enjoyed the good parts, while most suffered dramatically, and yet this disparity did not stop the most prominent members of the time from continuing to publicly enjoy their unprecedented wealth. A major way that they did this was through their homes. Their abodes were anything but humble, and everyone who walked by could tell you that. But how many spectators knew the ugly truth hidden within those beautiful walls? The way that these elite figures used their lavish homes to conceal such common problems caused society to perpetuate the idea that money can make you happy, if they only knew. But we know. And to understand it even better, we need to go back and look at the situation as a whole. Now, I never leave you guys astray, so let's just start with the Gilded Age and its architecture. From the 1860s to the early 1900s, the U.S. experienced unprecedented economic growth, which gave rise to a new class of elites called robber barons. The Gilded Age, as Mark Twain suggests, was when American society showcased a life of luxury externally, but just ridden with tragedy internally. And I'm sure he knew he was right, and we see that now, since the intricate mansions during the Gilded Age were practically used as walls around the owner's issues and the public. Each of these mansions consisted of their own unbelievable beauty. In regards to domestic architecture, a lot of them exhibited American Renaissance or French-style homes, which were popular at the time. The Beaux Art style and French chateau were also very common in Manhattan, a hot spot for robber barons. All this emphasis on showing off wealth led to a number of record-breakingly expensive homes owned by some of the richest people in history. One of the wealthiest in history includes John D. Rockefeller. While we may know him from the Rockefeller Center in New York, he was actually the world's first billionaire. He did this through his oil company, which turned into quite a controversy, so we're going to talk about that another time. But his life was far from as luxurious as his belongings. For example, when he was a child, his dad was accused of rape and moved the family to a different state. From there, he divorced his mother and married a woman 25 years younger than him. Even when Rockefeller's mother died, his dad didn't show up to the funeral, so he told the workers to announce her as a widow. This was also around the time when Rockefeller developed severe alopecia, which was likely due from the stress. Then one of his daughters went to Switzerland for experimental depression treatment for 8 years and then died of cancer shortly after returning. Another daughter died of heart problems at just age 40. So by the age of 83, after a long life of stress, loss, depression, Rockefeller checked himself into a mental hospital for exhaustion and migraines. While his feats were amazing, he wasn't able to take care of his mental health until his later years. It makes you wonder, how much time can you have for yourself, your emotions, your personal desires outside of work at this level of wealth? Andrew Carnegie was another robber baron who had issues with success in his personal life, even though he was successful financially. Carnegie was the steel tycoon of the Gilded Age and behaved like other elites by investing much of it into his residencies. His beautiful homes, especially his New York mansion, pleased the eyes of onlookers, but no one ever seemed to please him. While he was social, he mainly lived a life of solitude. His dad passed away when he was 20, and he had typhoid fever at the time of his mother's and brother's deaths. This actually caused those around him to keep his mother's death a secret from him for 3 weeks because they feared he'd worsen. After 8 months, he had married Margaret, who he had been friends with for about 10 years prior. Margaret was 30, and Carnegie was 52 at the time of their marriage. In 1897, when Carnegie was 61, Margaret gave birth to their first and only child. In his later years, Carnegie insisted on his philanthropic endeavors and tried to give away as much as possible. Even long after his death, his organizations claimed that he died unhappy knowing he would have given so much more. Alright, but by the time of his death, he had given away over $350 million and only had $30 million left to his name. His only child, Margaret, received very little of this fortune, which was normal considering men were the breadwinners and in charge of the finances during the Gilded Age. At the time, it was the men who dominated the economy, and subsequently society. But Miss Astor was sick of listening to the finance bros dictate society, so she took matters into her own hand. Miss Astor, or Caroline Astor, gained her prominence in high society largely through her parents being Knickerbockers, crazy term, I know, and her marriage to real estate giant William Backhouse Astor Jr. She was, and still is, considered the woman who dictated and dominated who she considered part of the upper echelon at the time. Although not assigned, her role was implied through her status, and especially her lavish and exclusive balls. They consisted of a list of 400 people that she considered part of fashionable society. Her children didn't find as much success as their predecessors, and they even had a hidden son. Scour the internet high and low, and you will find merely crumbs about John Jacob Astor II. He's partially included when discussing family trees in newspapers from the time, but no other information on his life is available. It is rumored, though, that he was mentally unstable. They were so ashamed of a member of their own blood that they chose to pretend that he had never existed. And honestly, it kind of worked. It had to work. People couldn't know about their issues, especially not the Vanderbilts. Because Miss Astor hated the Vanderbilts. Even at that time, there was drama all over. And it was mostly because the Vanderbilts had humble beginnings, which was very different from other elites at the time who had inherited or married into wealth. But this didn't prevent Cornelius Vanderbilt from becoming a railroad connoisseur and one of the richest men in the country. Him and his family enjoyed their pick from multiple mansions across the nation, including a line of houses on Fifth Avenue in New York City nicknamed Vanderbilt Row. Being considered new money, the family tried to prove themselves, especially to the Astors, through these mansions. But they were often ignored since Miss Astor didn't care about new money, and if she didn't care, nobody else did. This started a bit of a rivalry, which produced more mansions, even by the same architects. This back and forth eventually led to the Vanderbilts upping the Astors in their balls and stripping away Miss Astor's title. Unfortunately, the Vanderbilts' fun could only last so long, since William K. Vanderbilt died after 8 months in home confinement in a wheelchair. He had chronic illnesses and died from exhaustion. Alva, his wife, who had hosted the balls, was left to her lonesome in a mansion that was once overflowing with life. Unable to keep up with maintaining the home, she sold it, where it was later demolished. All of that work for nothing. Most of the other Gilded Age mansions have been demolished as well. The grandeur of this lifestyle these socialites exhibited has been mostly erased from the streets of America due to demolitions, renovations, and new developments. Considering most mansions no longer exist, it proves that the value of money is temporary and people will move on after death. The time and money spent on these homes that could have been spent on me, society moves towards other architectural styles that are opposite and personally insulting compared to those of the Gilded Age. And now it's time for my hot take. We've learned that life seemed prosperous on the outside, but there was a world of controversy, insecurity, and misery on the inside. This was not specific to just the Gilded Age. To this day, we witness celebrities and other elites continue to flaunt their extravagant lifestyles. They constantly showcase their extensive and expensive lifestyle, just in different ways. However, when these aspects of their lives are constantly shared throughout the internet, more people are exposed to lifestyles they never thought could exist. What used to be someone's good place might now be worthless after seeing what's better out there. Even studies are telling us that we are behaving in this pattern of comparison. That if there is something better out there, then what we have now can't really be that good. We want to be loyal to the setting, money can't buy happiness. But if society is only seeing the best moments of a celebrity's life, then they might be convinced that it can. However, having all of these material prizes can only go so long. Many celebrities and other prominent figures have spoken about a wide array of personal issues. These issues include cheating scandals, physical and mental illness, and God knows how much more. They express that they experience troubles just like any other person. But this is rare. So even with this exposure, many members of society continue to ignore the confessions and compare themselves to the wealthy. The way that elites use their wealth to intentionally or unintentionally deceive the public of their real lives has simply taken form in a different way. And whether the actors are doing so knowingly, they still perpetuate the idea that a lavish life can cause no harm. While the saying goes, money can't buy happiness, many Americans and celebrities alike are still trying to convince themselves it can. Thank you all for watching, and remember to like and subscribe. For more information, you guys can visit the links in our description, and while you're down there, comment your hot takes, because the conversation never ends. Don't be shy and visit our channel if you would like to see more amusing archives or hear more striking stories. Until next time, you nerdy little freaks.